How's it going, guys? My name is Luis, and Nintendo sent me an early copy of Metroid Samus Returns for the 3DS to review, and while I can't technically post my review just yet, I am about 4 hours into the game and I want to share my early impressions of it so far. Metroid Samus Returns is a remake of the original Metroid 2 Return of Samus for the Nintendo Game Boy. The story and the overall plot is very much the same. After discovering the Metroid lifeform in the first Metroid, Samus is sent to planet SR-388 where an abundance of other Metroids have been detected. Samus is given the job to hunt down and destroy all the remaining Metroids in sight. While the story is the same, the newly revamped visuals with the added cutscenes and 3D camera shift in those scenes definitely help give the story more context and a more cinematic feel than what was possible on the original Game Boy. If you played the original game, you'll definitely be able to connect and compare certain scenes from the original game in this game. Of course, with the 2.5D visual upgrade comes some major changes to the gameplay. Right off the bat, you can notice that the high resolution of the 3DS allows the camera to be pulled back a bit for a more wider field of view than what was possible on the Game Boy. Because of that higher resolution, characters appear smaller in this version, but more importantly, gameplay feels way faster than the original game. You're no longer at risk of running into enemies so much because you get a nice warning of their presence thanks to that wider field of view. The gameplay primarily remains a 2D side-scroller, but since this is on the 3DS, it's more of a 2.5D style where everything is technically in 3D but the camera is in 2D, and there are moments where it does shift a little bit into 3D for those cinematic cutscenes. In the original game, you pretty much started off with a set of tools like missiles and the morph ball. In this remake though, these are abilities that you have to find on your journey and open up new pathways to new areas on the planet. That leads us to possibly the biggest change with this game, the fact that it's pretty much its own unique game. You'll have the same story and familiar enemies, but with the new 3DS hardware, gameplay has been revamped so much that along with the layout of most of the rooms, it's pretty much a brand new Metroid game only with the same story. The original game was also much harder to navigate since you didn't really have a map to track your movements at all times. That's one major improvement in this version of the game. At the bottom of the 3DS is a map of the area you're exploring, and you can go ahead and add pins to certain areas that you want to mark and come back to. There's also a handy glossary that depicts the different icons on the map, like discovered Metroids, save points and teleportation ports you can use to go back to older areas if you don't feel like manually walking back. Combat has also been upgraded with the new controls. Samus has her traditional blaster with her that you can aim left, right, up or down, but now it can also be free aimed in any direction. By holding down the L button, you can use the circle pad to aim in any direction you'd like, but also still have complete control over jump. One nice little touch of this free aim is that it shoots out a little reticle that lights up red when you actually match up with an enemy or a target. All of Samus's other weapon abilities like her Ice Beam are shown off at the bottom of the 3DS, so you can quickly switch between them with the touch of the touchscreen. On top of her weapons, Samus has these new Aeon abilities inside of her suit, one of which lets you scan the area for new parts of a map. This is also a pretty handy way to find secret items as well as breakable walls to find new paths. The final big change I wanted to address for the gameplay was the new counter ability. When this was first shown off, I think a lot of people were worried that this was going to play like Metroid Other M, but that's definitely not the case. Along with the general gameplay and Samus's movement being faster, so are the enemies. Enemies are much faster paced and they tend to rush you pretty often, and when they do, you'll see a flash of a lens flare come by. That's your chance or your cue to hit the melee attack for a counter. After the counter, you're given a few seconds of auto aim to finish off the enemy. It definitely made the game feel more like an action game, and I really dug that. Just looking at the gameplay, it's pretty apparent how much of a visual overhaul this game is. After all, we're going from the original Game Boy to the 3DS here. That big technology upgrade is a major understatement though, because Metroid Samus Returns is definitely not just a good looking game, but one of the best looking games, if not the best looking game on the 3DS. The use of the 3D effect really gives depth to the caves and the caverns you explore. Best of all is that the backgrounds really give off that whole isolated feel that Metroid games have always given off, and it's just more emphasized with these beautiful looking visuals and the 3D effect with the 3DS. Mark this game under the better with 3D list because it looks good without 3D, but it's definitely worth playing the entire thing in 3D. Oh, and if you're playing this on the older 3DS or 2DS hardware, it still runs pretty well. I was able to test it on the original 3DS XL and it runs just fine. Metroid has always had that feeling of solitude and confinement, and while the original Metroid 2 had it to some extent, part of that feeling was always because of the series' music, and the sounds that the Game Boy could produce at the time were pretty limited. Luckily, this remake brings along some new tracks that really give that tone a boost. Much like this game is better with the 3D turned on, it's also better with a nice pair of headphones to fully immerse yourself into the gameplay. So far, I'm having a good time with Metroid Samus Returns. The story is pretty much exactly the same, but for all intents and purposes, this is very much a brand new Metroid game from a gameplay, visual, and music standpoint. Those who played the original game will know the story and will be able to connect to some gameplay moments of the original in this one, but still for the most part you'll get a new experience. To those of you who have never played the original or any of the 2D Metroid games, this is definitely shaping up to be the best 2D modern take of the series so far, definitely outshining Metroid Other M. But of course, I'm still playing the game and have yet to finish it, so stay tuned for my final thoughts when my review drops in about a week. If you enjoy my content though, then please consider subscribing so you don't miss out that review. I do videos on pretty much all the major platforms, so no bias to one platform here. Thank you all very much for watching, and keep on gaming.